how are you doing today? My name is Louis Lee, and I'd like to introduce the UMass Conservatory of Music and Arts guitar program. Welcome back. This is the UMass Conservatory of Music and Arts guitar program, and this is guitar lesson number 6. What we're going to do today is we're going to continue on with our finger exercise, the 1, 2, 3, 4. But we're going to go, instead of going 1, 2, 3, 4, we're going to go 1, 2, 3. We're going to exclude the 4th finger, okay? And I'll demonstrate, and then we'll do it together as normal, as usual. Here we go, ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I'll stop. Now you notice that I'm not playing that 4th note. You know, the exercise, the previous exercise, was all 4. Let me demonstrate what we did on the previous exercise. Here we go, ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, but now what we're playing 1, 2. I was going to sing. Here we go, ready? We're playing 1, 2, 3, and we're leaving that 4th out, and it's a rest. There's nothing, silence, okay? So let's try that, and we'll do that for 5 minutes. So get ready, prepare. Ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, rest. 1, 2, 3, rest. 1, 2, 3, rest. 1. Go to the next string. Rest. 2, 3, rest. 1, 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 2, 3, rest. Now you notice I was counting out loud, and I do that a lot. If you ever go to a recording session, musicians, they always count. It's what we do because it keeps us in sync. It's like a gauge. It's like your odometer. You have to know if you're traveling 60 miles an hour or 65. Which one is it? Because if you're traveling 65 and the speed limit is 60, you can get a ticket. So you look at your odometer. And so counting is the same way. You count. Even as I speak right now, my foot is doing the counting for me. It's keeping me in sync. I can feel it. I can just feel it. And this is what you want. It'll come naturally. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. And make sure you listen to that beat. Sometimes students, they get ahead of the beat or they get behind the beat. We can talk about that later. That's appropriate in certain situations. But practicing, no. You want to be on the beat. we'll stop there. Now, again, I'm going to turn off the metronome. Always practice with your metronome. Set your metronome for 60 beats per minute. Always give yourself a pre-count. Always make sure that you're in a comfortable position. You have your guitar stand. You see where things are situated? This is how we work. This is like my workstation. When I'm at home or here or someplace out professionally, I have my music stand. I always bring a music stand with me because normally they do not have one. If they do, that's okay. If it's certain gigs, like if you're playing at a large convention, they'll have stands already supplied for you, but not, you want to have your music stand. Because if not, you have to put it on the floor someplace. You want to have your guitar stand so you can set your guitar down. Not where you have to stand up and put it back in the case or lean it up against the wall and it falls. No, that's not professional. So this is how you want to prepare yourself. And that concludes the finger exercise for lesson number 6. Welcome back. This is the theory part of the lesson number 6. And so today we're going to talk about time signatures. Time signatures are very important, and they have a very significant part in music. If you look at your table number 5 in your book on page 13, you'll see this. And what it says is time signatures. You have a simple time, which is 4/4. There are actually several. There's 5/8, 6/8, 12/8, 5/4, a bunch of them. And I'll get into the significance of each one a little bit later on. But the one that we're going to focus on is the common time, which is for commercial music, is what you hear today. And that's 1, 2, 3, 4, as with the metronome. This is 1, 2, 3, 4. This is 4/4. And actually, what that means is you have a top, which is a 4, and the bottom is a 4. Now, very quickly, music is an art, but it's also a science. It gets into math. Math is a science. It's an equation. 4/4 tells you that there are 4 quarters that will make a whole. It's a fraction. And the reason why it's a science is because when you read something, it's going to sound the same. If I played the instrument, or if you played the instrument, if you played the music, or if somebody else played the music, it's going to always sound the same. When you use science, it's like cooking. My mother used to always tell me to use a measuring cup. Don't just go in there and just put whatever you think the salt should be. Let me just put, because then the food would be too salty. Measure it, because the food could be expensive, it looks good, people will taste it and it tastes horrible. Okay, so I had to measure it, because that's a science. My dad was a rocket scientist, and so if you send a spaceship into space, it has to be calculated, everything has to be precise, and that's because we're talking about if you go out in space and something is wrong, the air could leak out because it wasn't measured correctly. So if it says so many inches or whatever, so that's a science, not to get too far. Medicine is a science. You go to your doctor, he gives you a prescription. You go to the pharmacy and you ask the pharmacist to give me so many milligrams of whatever it is. He has to give you exactly that amount. If it says 100 milligrams, he's not going to give you 25 because 25 milligrams is not enough. So he has to make sure he measures whatever it is. He gives you 100 milligrams and not 25. Okay. So music is the same way. 4/4 tells you that it's a math. It's a fraction. So music is part of math. So you have, to get back to the crux of the conversation, the top tells you right here, and I'll read it. The top tells you is how many counts per measure. Now, some people may tell you it means how many beats. Your theory is you could have 4 16th notes, and if you have 4 16th notes, 1 E and a, 2, you have 16 beats. Bop, 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 bop. Those are beats. So that negates that theory. So the top does not tell you, well, you could have 32nd notes or 64s. Now you've got a bunch of beats, more than 4. So the top tells you, how to count. So it tells you how many counts per measure. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's how you count. 2. It has nothing to do with the beats. The bottom tells you that every quarter note or what note receives 1 count. Now let me say that again. The bottom tells you every quarter note or what note receives 1 count. That transition word or tells you have an option. Either you can go up or down. You cannot go both ways. You can go east or you can go west. You can't not go both ways, okay? So if you have a quarter note, then the quarter note receives 1 count, okay? So if you have a eighth note, the eighth note receives 1 count. So what does that mean when you're writing music? Not to get too technical. First, what you want to do, remember all the rules. You learn those rules. And again, that's related to school. To learn how to speak and to read, you have to learn your alphabets. You're not going to ask your teacher, well, I want to learn how to read right now. No, the first thing you need to do is learn those alphabets. That's very significant. Then, after you learn your alphabets, then you learn your vowels and your consonants and everything else. Then you begin to learn how to read. But you have to learn all the rules first. You just can't go and say, no, just teach me how to read. Learn those alphabets first. So this right here is part of it. It's a step. So the first thing you want to know are all the rules. And that's what I have here. Remember that. The rule. Remember the rules, what I've written here. Okay, the top tells you how many counts per measure. The bottom tells you is what beat receives 1 count. Remember that so that you know it. Say it 30 times. Remember each time. 30 times every day. In 5 days, you will know it in your sleep. And you'll never forget it. Trust me. 30 times. And it shouldn't take you that long to say it 30 times. So, moving on. So this is what common time is. And normally, or usually I should say, is what you'll see is either a C, which they will just put a C there. I had a student last week ask me, he was reading some music. He said, what does that C mean? And I said, gee, he's been in the class now for at least several months, but maybe he's forgotten. No, it means common time. And common time or 4/4, they're both the same. So either or, remember either or. This way, okay, so that's for that. Now, moving on, next we have the note nomenclature. That's also important, okay? And that's on page 12, page 11, excuse me. The note nomenclature, why is it important? Because you want to know what you're speaking about if you ask a question. I've heard people call this all kinds of names, which I will not mention. They'll call this whatever. And the bottom. No, that's not the bottom, that's the head. This is the stem and that's the flag. They'll say that squiggly line. No, it's a flag. It has one name. They're not several names. This is a flag. That's universal. Okay, when you see, this means that it's an eighth note. If it didn't have that, then it would be a quarter note. If it has 2 of these, it's a 16th note. So you'll know that, okay? Remember, it's a science. So that's very important, the note nomenclature. You need to know that. Study that. Now, somebody may say, gee, stem, flag, note head. 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 I've done it 5 times already. You need 25 more times, and you will have it in 5 days. Remember, we practice 30 minutes a day, and 5 days a week. You'll have this mastered, and you'll know what it is. And when you ask your director or somebody, or you're teaching, you'll say, how many flags does it have? And they'll know exactly what you're referring to. If it's 2 flags, you'll know it's a 16th note. Remember, it's a building process, so you're not going to start off if you do not know the rules. You need to know the rules first. So these are the rules. The first step that we're embarking on right now are learning the rules. So you want to learn the rules. So, looking at all of that, what I would encourage you to do is to study hard, stay focused, have fun, and that concludes this portion of the theory. Welcome back. This is the fun part of your guitar lesson number 6. And what we're going to look at today, we're going to review the chords from your chord sheet. So please make sure you have your chord sheet with you. We need that. And we're going to take it from the chord C7. That's a good chord, that's a popular chord. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my metronome at 60 beats per minute. Always, that's the standard for right now. And just let me explain why I've chosen 60 beats per minute. It's moderate. It's not too fast. Speed comes with accuracy. Once you get your muscles acclimated, you will not make any mistakes. But don't try to play, because if you make mistakes, that becomes a habit, and then you have to try to break the habit, and it could be just a long, tedious process. And 60, this metronome here, some metronomes will only go to 40. What I like about this metronome is it will go to 20. It'll go to 1. Now this is set to 20. That's too slow. This is too slow. That's 20. Let me show you. So that's set to 20. That's just too slow. Now let's look at 40. And we need to experiment and try all these so that you know this is 40. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. It's not that slow. 4, 1, and you could do that. But from my experience, when you want to go faster, then you're going to have to increase it, and you increase it exponentially. And so if you start at 60, you're closer to 100. Now listen to 60. Let me stop this. 2, 3, 4, 1. There is a significant difference, but to me, it just feels more natural, and that's how I learn. So that's my explanation. However, if you feel as if 60 is too fast, then find a comfortable tempo for you. Maybe 50 may be better, or 40 may be better. But remember, 20, that's too slow. Okay, that's just too slow. Okay, so we're going to start at 60. And we're going to count, and then we're going to play the C chord. Now remember, with this chord here, now we're using all 4 fingers. And if you look at the diagram, these are called tablatures. And I'll explain that in the next lesson, on the theory part. But this is the fun part. So, these are tablatures, and what they do is they show you where to place your fingers. Okay? And so we'll work with the C7, this one here, on your sheet. C7 is actually the letter C and the number 7. And we're going to play that chord. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. I'm going to stop. Now, when I'm playing this chord, I am not playing the E. You're not hearing that. You're not hearing these 2 E's. Remember, Eddie kind of might get by Eddie. You're not hearing that because those notes are relative to the chord, because the C is the 3rd, not to get into theory. But it would, it's just not what you want right now, because it would get in the way, it would overwhelm the sound. It would be too much and I'll demonstrate. That's just too much. No, here's the chord. 2, 3, 4. You want it to sound clean. So how am I doing that? Well, my 3rd finger is touching the 6th string, and you're not hearing it. So it's muted. So when I strum, I try to make sure I strum from the 5th string down, but sometimes we all make mistakes. Nobody's perfect but God. Okay, so sometimes to prevent that, my third finger, 1, 2, 3, 4, is muting that string. It's leaning, and my first finger is muting that E. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is what you get. 2, 3, 4. But you do not hear that. So you don't hear that. So that's a technique. And I just wanted to make sure that I explain that, because sometimes guitar players, they'll play and they'll have other strings bleeding in, and it could ruin the sound, especially if you played it up a half step. That sounds okay. It's a little bit too much, but if you went up, that's not. But here again, with me, and trying to be as perfect as I possibly can, I can justify it, because to be honest with you, that didn't sound too bad. And I could use that. That could be used musically. Watch. There's nothing wrong with that. That's the fun part. And that's what this is all about, fun. You can make a wrong sound correct if you're having fun. And I learned that from studying jazz. In jazz, Coltrane said there are no wrong notes. There are 12 notes in the scale. You have your major notes, then you have your passing tones, and you have your neighboring tones. So you have 8 notes that are in the scale. 1, 2, 3, in the key of C. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 8. There are 12, so there's 4 more. You're passing 2. So you have that second, major second, but you have that. Okay, that's 1. Then you have, I will not go through all of them because of time constraints, but there are 12 notes. So if there are 12 notes and they all work, it depends on how you approach it. That's in jazz. Jazz is improvisational. So you cannot make a mistake. It's justifiable if you study some of the great players out there, and I've studied one who was my mentor, Lenny Bruck, which taught me a lot. You can justify any note. That's why now I can make these notes that I'm telling you not to play. I'm making it work. So you can make anything work. That's the fun part. Remember, have fun with it. So the next chord is the D major chord. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 4, 2, 4. That's a nice chord. Then it goes to D minor. 4, 2, 3, 4, 2. Now, turn this off because we're about to end the lesson, but I just would like to say that playing these chords will also help with your technique, because these chords are kind of difficult to play. And the reason is because you're playing it at the beginning of the neck, where all the tension is, where the nut. If you were playing it here, it's easier because there's no resistance. And you have to, it's just more difficult. And so it's going to help your technique. But pretty soon it'll seem easy. So remember, enjoy yourself, practice hard, have fun. That concludes this portion of the lesson, which is the fun part.